Have you ever wanted to travel somewhere? What I've noticed is that travelling alone gives you something you rarely get in everyday life. You choose where to go, you choose when to stop, and most importantly, you become completely comfortable exploring the world. Over the next few days in Lisbon, I explored historic streets, travelled to the westernmost point of mainland Europe, and photographed some incredible locations. In this video, I take my iPhone camera, and there was one restaurant I found completely by accident that I genuinely think you cannot miss if you visit Lisbon. Even before reaching the square, Lisbon immediately gives you plenty to photograph. The entrance to the metro stations are beautifully designed, while the city streets repeatedly open into large public squares filled with fountains, market stalls and cafes. These spaces are more than just places to visit. They become natural landmarks as you navigate the city. And for photographers, they're perfect opportunities to frame the architecture. Eventually arrived at Praça do Comércio. This is one of those places that immediately explains why Lisbon is such a popular destination. The huge yellow buildings surround the square, and then suddenly the entire space opens towards the Tagus River. At the centre in the equestrian statue is King Jose I, with the famous Arco da Rua Augusta standing behind it. The arch was built following the devastating earthquake of 1755, which destroyed much of Lisbon. Walking is one of the best ways to experience Lisbon. You'll pass the famous Santa Justa lift, restaurants trying to tempt you inside, historic trams carrying tourists throughout the city. The trams quickly become one of the easiest subjects to photograph. They are colourful, distinctive, and completely integrated into the character of Lisbon's city. Eventually, I made my way towards my hostel. Along the way, I passed through the famous Pink Street, one of Lisbon's most recognisable and photographed areas. After checking into the hostel, I headed back out to explore. I watched the sunset across the city, walked through the streets, and eventually stopped at the Time Out Market to get some food before the next few days of exploring. The next morning, I was up early, and this is when you really start to see Lisbon differently. The streets are quieter, the light is softer, and the city feels much more authentic before the main tourist crowds arrive. I started walking east through the city and eventually stopped at a restaurant called a Merendeira for a traditional Portuguese breakfast. If you've never seen, it's sausage bread and potato soup. It certainly is different from what many of us would consider a typical breakfast. Lisbon is an incredible city for photography. The combination of historic buildings, colourful tiles, trams and natural light means there's always something happening within the frame. As the first day came to an end, I returned to the hostel, and the balcony gave me the perfect view. The bridge in the distance, Lisbon's buildings glowing in the final light, the city slowly transitioning into evening. What I've got to say is being comfortable alone gives you the freedom to appreciate moments without needing to share every second of them with someone else. Day 2 started with chocolate. I visited a place called Café Landau, known for its chocolate cake, and it was so good. I went back a second time during my trip. Once again, I passed Santa Justa lift. Unfortunately, the lift was undergoing maintenance during my visit, but the structure remains one of Lisbon's most recognisable architectural landmarks. From there, I continued towards Castelo de São Jorge, and eventually reached Miradouro de Santa Luzia. This is one of the best places to appreciate Lisbon from above. The red rooftops, the narrow streets, the Tagus River, the layers of historic buildings, and through streets filled with traditional Portuguese tile work. You'll find incredible examples of what we call azulejos throughout Lisbon. These decorative ceramic tiles are one of the defining visual features of Portuguese architecture. From there, I walked down towards Lisbon Cathedral. Along the way, I found a small yellow wall covered with traditional Portuguese ceramics celebrating Lisbon and Santo Antonio. Day 3 was tour day, so I booked a day tour covering Sintra, Guincho and Cascais. If you'd like to see the full vlog from that experience, I'll leave it linked in the description down below. But this day also demonstrated one of the best things about travelling alone. I met a group of Americans travelling around Europe and studying in London, and we decided to explore parts of Sintra together. And that's the thing about solo travel, because being alone doesn't mean being isolated. In fact, travelling alone often makes you more open to meeting new people. Our first stop was Pena Palace. The colours immediately grab your attention. Bright yellows, deep reds, green mountains surrounding the palace. It's one of those places that almost photographs itself. The palace became a summer retreat for the Portuguese royal family, who were drawn to the cooler climates and fresher air of Sintra Hills. The surrounding landscape is completely different from Lisbon. Dense forests, green hills, cooler air. It's easy to understand why the wealthy and royal families were attracted to this particular area. Every now and then, sunlight broke through the canopy, green, yellow, gold. From Pena Palace, we explored Sintra before heading towards Quinta de Regalera. Part garden, part palace, part mystery. And hidden within its famous initiation well, or, I'm absolutely going to butcher this, Poco Initiatico. The well is designed as a spiral staircase descending deep underground. Our guide explained the symbolic interpretation behind this experience. He said you descend into darkness, move deeper underground, and eventually make your way towards the light. The journey is often interpreted as a symbolic transformation, moving through darkness, confronting your fears, and eventually emerging into the light. The experience is incredibly memorable, and when you finally reach the bottom, you're surrounded by water and waterfalls and greenery. It's one of the most unique places to photograph in Sintra. From Sintra, we headed towards Quincho, close to the westernmost point of mainland Europe. Standing on the cliffs, you're looking across the Atlantic Ocean. It's a powerful reminder of how large the world really is. This is a famous destination for surfing, and even if you don't surf, the landscape alone makes it worth visiting. Eventually, we reached Cascais. I walked through the streets, saw the beaches, went to the lighthouse, and noticed oranges growing on trees. So this brings me back to one of two restaurants I mentioned at the beginning, because I found it completely by accident. I was walking around Cascais, looking for somewhere to eat. I came across Tabana Clandestina. I ordered a red prawn pasta and it was absolutely incredible. Of course, you can't spend time in Lisbon without trying gingina. I think I said that right. A traditional Portuguese cherry liqueur. It's served in a small shot glass, often with a cherry at the bottom. The cherries are infused with the liquor, creating a sweet but slightly sour drink, and after a long day exploring, it was exactly what was needed. The next morning, I headed to the LX factory. I visited in the morning, which meant it was much quieter. I'd recommend visiting later in the day if you want to experience the full atmosphere, but the quiet morning gave me time to appreciate the architecture and artwork, the street art, the industrial buildings, and the famous library. It's a fascinating example of how an old industrial site has been transformed into a creative destination. From LX Factory, I continued along the waterfront. This was one of my favourite walks I've ever done on a holiday. You'll see runners, walkers, and people playing paddle. And throughout the entire journey, the 25 de Abril bridge remains a constant focal point. Every time you think you've left it behind, you turn another corner, and there it is again. It becomes almost like a visual anchor throughout your journey through Lisbon. Along the waterfront is MAT, the Museum of Art and Architecture and Technology. It almost resembles a wave, and after visiting Cascais yesterday, the connection to the coastline felt particularly fitting. Further along is the former Central Terra power station, now home to the Electricity Museum and part of Lisbon's wider cultural complex. The red brick industrial architecture against the blue sky creates another incredible photographic opportunity. Eventually, I reached Belém, and there is an incredible amount to see here. The Jeronimus Monastery, the Padro des Descomprimentos, and yes, I'm probably butchering these names, but the waterfront, and of course, the Torre de Belém, or the Tower of Belém. Built in the early 16th century, the tower formed part of Lisbon's defensive system, and is closely connected to Portugal's Age of Discoveries. And this brings me to my final meal in Lisbon. And this is where I found that restaurant I told you about at the start of this video, Bon Jardim. This is one place I would highly recommend remembering. Bon Jardim has been serving traditional Portuguese food in Lisbon since the mid-20th century and is particularly well known for its roast chicken. But for me, the garlic butter prawns were the highlight. I tried another restaurant earlier in the trip and it simply wasn't the same. So if you're visiting Lisbon, get here early or book ahead where possible, because this one place I'd happily return to. And that was Lisbon. 4 days, an iPhone camera, and a 30-litre backpack. Go alone, walk the streets, take as many photographs, eat somewhere you weren't planning to be, talk to someone you've never met, and see where the day takes you, because sometimes the best parts of a journey are the ones you never planned. If you've enjoyed coming along with me so far on this Lisbon tour, consider subscribing. There are plenty more stories and photographs with adventures to come. And on that note, I'll see you in the next one.